If you want to become a real UX designer, empathy, sensitivity, and the openness to change both your ideas and your opinion about your ideas is everything you will ever need. Hello and welcome back everyone, my name is Chris and today we will dive a bit deeper into what you need if you want to become a real UX designer. You might be a bit surprised in the end because you do not expect what you really need, because it's actually just some very few items, because most people believe that UX designers make user interfaces pretty, but that's not the case. UX designers create solutions that are really easy to use, and it's not only softwares. It's also products and services. As a UX designer, you want to create solutions that users rather want to have than being without them. And therefore, a proper mindset is the first key element that every UX designer needs to have. Having empathy is the first part of that mindset, because you need to talk to the users, you actively need to involve them in the creation process of the solution, whether it's a product, a software, or a service. But you need to communicate with your users, and you need to have empathy and really understand what they feel and why they feel that way, and why they prefer one option over another one. And that empathy is really closely related to the sensitivity that you need if you do a user study or an interview, for example. Because oftentimes users tell you something that they don't really mean. Not because they want to lie, but just because they don't know it better, or because they want to be polite. And that's why you need to be very sensitive, and you need to talk to the users and actively say, well, what didn't you like? So be honest, tell your users something like that, and they will give you some really valuable feedback. And this all ends up in the last characteristics that you need as a UX designer, because you need to be able to allow others to make adjustments to the concepts or the solutions that you want to create. I know it can be hard from times to times, but other people give you so much valuable input, and we need to understand as UX designers that our personal opinion doesn't matter. It's not the most important thing if you want to create astonishing solutions. It's always the users that need to be in the center. If they give you feedback that does not necessarily correlate with your own ideas, then you have to make adjustments and have to go against your own ideas and beliefs. The real job of a UX designer is to understand the users, and based on that knowledge, we create awesome solutions, and it's not making user interfaces look pretty. In theory, everything we as UX designers do can be done on only a sketchbook and a pencil. That's everything we need, because we can prepare surveys on that, we can evaluate those interviews that we do with potential users, we can create some first sketches for our prototypes, we can create paper prototypes with these two tools that we can then evaluate with our users. But of course, for a higher quality, higher fidelity, and higher productivity, we need a laptop. It's simply easier and faster to create online surveys. We can evaluate the results way faster with different tools that I'll explain to you later. And we can create some first click prototypes on our computers that we can then share with others. And then we can evaluate those prototypes with real users. And in the end, the evaluation is done way faster too. And there's one more hardware that I would suggest is not optional, and that's the UX cards. Once they are published and launched, I'll let you know, and you need to get one of those decks because they can save up to 90% of your time. But there's also some optional hardware. If you are more in the product design industry as a UX designer, then you might consider a 3D printer to create some first hardware 3D prototypes. And if you're more into software as a UX designer, a graphic tablet is definitely something I would suggest you to get, because you can simply work way faster on your computer then. And that's it for the hardware. Let's move on to the software, and I would like to introduce the software that I personally use the most. In this order, I first of all want to go through the UX workflow, the analysis phase, the prototyping or design phase, the implementation phase, and in the end the evaluation phase. And I will give you the tools I use for all these different phases. And none of the tools I will show you in just a couple of seconds are sponsored. All of them are only the tools that most UX designers I know use and the ones I use the most often. For the analysis phase, the first phase in the UX workflow, I would like to introduce two tools to you. The first one is Google Forms, which is for making bigger surveys online, so you can create questionnaires and then you can evaluate the results not directly in Google Forms, so it's possible for some of them, but not everything. And therefore, the second tool that I use the most often in the analysis phase is Microsoft Excel. Because you can simply do your maths, your statistics in this tool, and that's why these are the two essential tools, in my opinion, for the analysis phase. Then let's move on to the second phase, the prototyping and design phase. For this phase, the tool that I use the most for low fidelity prototypes is Adobe XD. Because it's simply easy to create some first design ideas, just some low fidelity ones, and then you can simply share your prototypes with other designers and the users, so you can very easily do the first user studies with your first concept ideas or the first wireframes. The second tool I use the most in the prototyping or design phase is Sketch. It's only available for Mac OS, that's the downside of it, but if you have a MacBook or a Mac, you can download this tool, and I would really suggest that because the concept behind this tool is so awesome. You can create astonishing designs in just some very small amount of time. And then, if you really want to go one step further, I would suggest you to use Flinto or Principle. Both of the tools are also only available for Mac OS again. However, you can create really astonishing prototypes with these tools because you can create some really nice animations in them in just a very small amount of time. And therefore, I would suggest to you these three tools: Adobe XD for prototyping, Sketch for designing, and Flinto or Principle for Mac for creating your high fidelity prototypes. If we move on to the third phase of the UX workflow, the implementation phase, it strongly depends on the solution that you're creating. If you're creating a native application for iOS or Android, for example, you might have to use Xcode or Android Studio. But if you create something like a web page, Visual Studio Code is the tool to go for because it's free and easy to use. When you're working on a web page or a web application, you will need a local server which can be created by MAMP for Mac OS or by XAMPP for Windows. Let's move on to the fourth and final phase of the UX workflow, the evaluation phase, where you actually get the results from the users about your solutions that you have created in the prototyping or design phase, or the implemented solution from the implementation phase. And the tools that you need the most for this phase is Word for creating your user study, for planning everything through, and standardized questionnaires. So you have a user experience questionnaire, for example, that you can actively use to compare your solution to all other solutions out there and check how good your solution is compared to everything else that's out there in the world already. So those are the main personal skills, products, softwares, and services that you need to become a real user experience designer. If you liked that video, please subscribe to my channel if you are on YouTube, turn the notifications bell on, and also like that video. If you are on any other platform, feel free to connect with me. I'm looking forward to you, but also to your comments down in the comment section below. Thank you so much and have a nice day.